Today, on behalf of the CEC, I would like to introduce Steve Milley. He is the Group Manager in Development for Panasonic Systems Solutions Company, which specializes in industry-leading video and audio tech for the sports media and entertainment systems. And he is with us as a guest today on Leveling Up with Esports with the CEC. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing as well as can be expected. All right, thanks for having me. But actually, I'm doing fine. My family's doing fine, and so I'm doing good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem. What we wanted to get to on the show today is kind of like let us know a little bit more about what you do with Panasonic and a little more about your background, and we can start from there.
Okay, fair enough. So I've been with Panasonic for some time, but I've been in this industry that we'll talk about in a minute for most of my career. I went to school for quote unquote communications and radio, television, and film. And so what I do and what we do is we're very much involved in the technology portion of communications. How is content acquired? How is content delivered? And the tools that are used as part of that. So I manage the group that works directly with the end users and our reseller network, but the end users that are acquiring and developing content. And that could be filmmakers, it could be education, it could be enterprise, but one of those groups is sports, whether it's traditional sports or in this case, esports that we're going to be talking about today. And those types of markets in sports, they acquire content to either record it or deliver it at some time. And what my group does is we work with the end users and we say, all right, well, what do you need right now? Where's the direction of the business going? And then ultimately, how can Panasonic be a part of that?
Right. So next question I wanted to ask you is, I just changed my virtual background as we're talking.
Yeah.
The next question I wanted to ask you was, in other words, so your systems to start with, and I've talked to other people that are going to be at the CEC, the casino industry is really trying to build on, or at least as far as COVID is concerned, I mean, we've had COVID, that's kind of like launched, it's kind of catapulted the esports industry because there's no sports right now.
Right.
And it's catapulted the esports industry, I would say 5 years in advance.
Yep.
So knowing all of that, and now knowing that in the esports, it's a wide range of professional sports, collegiate, high school. Using your systems, how would a casino use your systems and try to pull that community of video gamers and esports people back to their location? I mean, in what ways can your systems be utilized to get?
It's a good question. And frankly, it's not a question that you're asking. It's what our customers are asking, whether it's in the casino market, whether it's the education market, or just the gaming market. And there's no one concise answer because I guess the way I would answer it is workflows depending on applications change, and depending on those workflows will determine your tools associated to it. And so what I mean by that, and I'll come to the casino market in a second, is when we look at esports facilities, right? As you know, Ari, there's multiple different kinds. There's, traditional just small arenas that are used for more gameplay, tournament gameplay. And then you have more stadium size that have a spectator element to it, but also tournament level play. And then you have complexes like in Arlington, the Texas Arlington Arena, and the soon to be, although delayed, I guess, Fusion Arena in Philadelphia. And so each of those facilities has different needs. Ultimately, the biggest part of it is obviously from a technology standpoint in esports is the game itself, of course, computers, servers, and comfy chairs, right? And computer monitors. Where Panasonic gets involved in whatever facility it is, and again, we'll talk about the casino market in a second, but whatever market it is, where we get involved is when that game, that tournament, or that esports needs to acquire footage that is outside of the game, and then deliver that content, right? So meaning, let's say we have an esports facility, let's call it the Texas Arlington Arena, and they're having a tournament there, and they're having the game there, right? There's absolutely a, say a 6-on-6 tournament game going on, and all that game is in game. The content is delivered in game. Where we get involved is one, if there's an audience, a spectator aspect of it, and they want to see what's happening in the game, so they may need projectors, or they may need displays. And then we also get involved when, in that the example, people want to see reaction of the actual gamers themselves, so cameras are needed in that instance. And then we get involved if we have to switch that footage. You go from one camera to a next, and there needs to be switchers involved. So we're not the total solution in an esports arena, but we're an integral part of it in the acquisition of the content outside of the game and the delivery of the content of the game, of what's being acquired.
So something similar to what you're talking about would be like when you watch on ESPN the World Poker Tour, when they're playing poker and you can see the cards that are being dealt, but then you're getting the overall picture of the table and the players at the table, and how that whole interaction, and then the switching from the cards to the players, etc., that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And so whether it's traditional sports or esports, and that's why everything scales. When I talk about it, facilities, you have smaller just gaming arenas and tournaments, and those types, even if they may be delivering to Twitch, the game tournament, they may not be delivering the content of the people or what's happening in their surroundings, but then you scale all the way up. So if it's the Super Bowl, they're watching the game, but they're also, cameras are shooting the play-by-play, they're shooting the audience, they're shooting the coaches, and then they're delivering that content, and they're delivering it out to jumbotrons or projecting it onto walls. And yes, so using poker as an example, that is an example of where we would get involved as well.
It's interesting because there's a lot of ideas, of course, that come to mind when I think of your products and how they can integrate into the casino environment, and also be utilized to make it, to create the atmosphere from anyone viewing online what's actually happening inside a casino. If they started doing video gaming tournaments and esports tournaments, to attract those younger people to the location, almost giving them a situation of fear of missing out.
Yeah.
You want to set that up, so if you could get those right camera angles and the emotions of people and things like that, I think more people would want to come to the casino to buy tickets to an esports tournament, just like they would want to go. Because I understand you guys do like football games and that kind of thing, but you can't have a football stadium inside of a casino.
Right.
You can have an esports tournament.
Absolutely.
And it definitely lends itself to creating much more of an integral part of allowing that casino to show through your devices how they can, how you guys could really make it look great, and that people are viewing online at something that's going on in the casino, that they're missing out on something that could be great.
And as a real world case study for that, particularly relative to the explosion of the market, as well as the importance in the gaming market, the casino market, Caesars partnered with UNLV. You're probably aware of this, but they partnered in a technology center
At the Blackfire Institute.
Blackfire facility, right. And that they have an esports arena in the Blackfire facility as Panasonic technology. But I find it very interesting, and because we also know that the education market in the esports world is exploding. There's, 120 or so teams already, or maybe more in leagues. But it's also exploding in casino market. And so both UNLV and Caesars recognized that, partnered on this, developed an esports arena as a learning lab for their students that then can, not just their students, but they're not their students that are learning how to game, but they're students that are going into the hospitality market.
Right. And speaking of Blackfire Institute, we will have some people from that institute at our event speaking at the CEC.
Wonderful.
Hopefully in person, if not, it would have to be virtually. But I want to get back to the current pandemic, about what's happening, and there's been news about Panasonic. They had to the Olympic Games, the Summer Olympic Games were canceled. I know that they had a lot of involvement in there. Can you just expand a little bit about what happened there and how you guys will pivot from that?
So it's a really good point, and we are very fortunate that we've had it's either a 30 or 40 year, I forget the exact figure, but let's say it's a 30-year on the conservative side relationship with the Olympics and the Olympic Committee. And so what our partnership is part of them, and going back to it, is we partner on them on the tools to acquire and deliver the content acquired during the Olympics. And so what we do as part of that, we evaluate it every 2 years, because the Olympics every 2 years, and look at where the direction is going. And this year it was going to be in Japan, of course, and that's unfortunate for not just the Olympics, but also for all of Japan and certainly Panasonic. But it was going to be also having a very heavy 8K development as part of it as well, which is interesting because from an esports standpoint, resolutions aren't really a matter, right? They want the higher resolution, the better. But relative to our engagement with the Olympics for Panasonic, when they decided to shut it down, it effectively shut down what we were necessarily doing with them. Doesn't mean for this particular time frame, they delayed it a year. And so our engagement doesn't change as part of that. Fortunately for Panasonic, the group I'm part of, COVID certainly has impacted every industry and all economies. But in terms of delivery of the tools that we need to deliver and the people that need our tools, there's been, the impact's been mitigated. And so there's a lot of people that right now, particularly in the education and the sports market, or the broadcast market and the worship market, they want to be streaming their content now rather than in person, because they can't. And so we're still able to deliver the tools for them.
Well, that's good to hear. So the other part of it is that, as you mentioned, them getting the streaming concepts behind it. It's almost like we could, you're involved in the business development for Panasonic, I have a great idea for you. Maybe have an esports Olympics or something in Las Vegas, and have a different esport game at every casino along the strip.
Yeah,
would be something. And then you'd have to switch between the broadcast booth to then going to this game at this casino and that game at this casino. Yeah. So there's a lot of ideas that we can expand on that Panasonic hopefully would even want.
Well, and I'd love to be part of it. I think Panasonic would, as you know, unlike traditional sports, particularly like the Olympics, esports right now is rather fragmented. You have big time players like Blizzard and Riot, and then everything else is kind of all over the map. And then you have different leagues and different, in both in terms of professional and college, and it's a little fragmented. And so hopefully that'll coalesce a little bit better.
Well, the thing is with esports, you have publishers like Epic Games that are really utilizing that game Fortnite to the point that they can possibly make as much money off of that game as they can.
Right.
They've now, there's in sponsorships now and advertising within the game. They actually had a concert in the game. I don't know. I didn't read I don't know a lot about it, but I was wondering if they sold tickets to that concert. So you're actually playing the game, but then you could go to this concert. Yeah. So everything is now set up in a virtual world.
Right.
I guess my next question is, with the camera abilities and Panasonic, I don't know if you know where the next steps is technologically of the systems that Panasonic is using. And I know that they work more on the the B2B side rather than the B2C side. Do you know of anything that they may be coming out with, virtual reality, any powerful cameras in that respect that can create different things?
Well, it's how do I answer it? So when we talk about esports, one of the things that's so incredibly critical in esports versus traditional sports is latency, right? Because you're working off of servers, or you potentially working off of the internet, and what your bandwidth is like. Traditional sports doesn't have to worry about any of that type of thing. But latency is so incredibly critical because you can't have a delay if one person's playing the game and the other person is on the other end, in a different part of the country, and they have a delay. So what we do is we provide the technology from a streaming standpoint and from a connectivity standpoint and from a virtual standpoint. So we have robotic cameras that work with, that allow you to do like you're doing right now, but a more concise type of green screen and background and virtual set and virtual reality, working with something we call, it's called an Unreal Engine, but our cameras can connect directly to that Unreal Engine, and you can kind of put whatever you want behind it. And we are going to see a lot more of that. We're seeing it happening right now. We just did our virtual NAB around it. But everything has to catch up to the bandwidth of what's available out there right now, particularly in the esports market. We're there, but if your bandwidth isn't there, that presents some challenges for you.
Well, if you mentioned Unreal, the Unreal Engine is actually a software developed. It's what game developers use to create video games, and it's Unreal Engine is a competitor of Unity. Unreal Engine was made by Epic Games, and it's a great platform. And a lot of people would say it's more solid than Unity. Unity is also more widely used. Actually, Unity is made also another software engine that is built for game development. So it's great to see that Panasonic is sort of pivoting into that world of virtual broadcasting booths, because that's where we're going. I mean, I got a virtual screen right behind me, as you were talking about. But it's from the casino's perspective, and we get to now, we're also talking, because we're all talking colleges and amusements. How can Panasonic integrate their hardware into the collegiate esports scene, high school esports scene, and then also maybe like for some of those people that are attending our event this year, we're including entertainment and amusements, movie theaters and things like that need to expand their entertainment base as well as the casinos. How can they make an immersive experience using some Panasonic technology?
One of the keys on a real immersive experience isn't simply having a camera, right? It's how is that content displayed or delivered, right? And so what we see a lot happening now, particularly in all sorts of different markets, not just esports, but is projection mapping, where you have a uneven surface, but you projection map around that to create a more immersive experience for the viewer. So traditionally, you would take a projector, put it on, this isn't a screen, but obviously, let's say that was a blank screen behind me, and you'd watch it, right? Now, if I had a globe, I could projection map around that globe. Or if I had a contoured building, I can, projection map, and I can dial in my projector to make that image work on that surface, and it becomes a much more immersive experience. And we see it very much in the museum market right now, but we're seeing that more in the enterprise space, traditional corporate events. But we also see it being adopted in the hospitality or the casino market. Now, is it specific to esports? Maybe not necessarily, but it could be, because depending on how you develop your esports arena, you could get very creative for that. And then if you have a spectator element of that, they're brought into it.
Well, I always say because of the element of technological connectivity of the Gen Z and millennial markets that are involved in video gaming and esports. These are the fan bases of esports. I think that, overall, blanketly, when you're talking about entertainment venues like a casino, like a movie theater, like an amusement park, they have to create and upgrade their immersive experiences, because that's what the younger generations are now coming to expect. Something
Right.
cool, something interesting. And I think a perfect example of what you would be speaking about in regard to those buildings, and then the image that's being projected onto those buildings, fitting that building, is what you would see at Disney World when they have the light show
Yep.
at the castle, at Cinderella's castle. And I've seen it. It's magnificent and really incredible. So that kind of stuff, I think, already exists in some parts of Las Vegas and some parts of the casino world. But I agree. If you're going to be bringing in this younger audience, it's gotta really be even more relevant to that younger audience, because, as you said, being in this pandemic, being in the COVID thing, it's like everybody's now been able to just strap on a virtual reality thing, turn on their computer, and enter into a virtual world. What do you give them? In other words, I'm going to ask you this question, because we don't even have to expand on a Panasonic product, but what can we create in a entertainment venue that gonna get people out, once the pandemic's over, once COVID has been taken care of, once we got a vaccine and everybody can live normally again? What is it going to take? What can we do to create an immersive experience? In your mind, what would you like to see for younger people?
Taking off my Panasonic hat, the way I look at any type of experience from an entertainment standpoint, it has to have a tactical element to that. The virtual element, like we're doing right here, it's a virtual meeting, effectively. That works, but it's still not as fulfilling emotionally as a tactical element, right? And so when you're developing a facility, even when you refer to Disney as example, we're a partner of Disney, and we work with them on the Star Wars attraction at Disney World relative to projection technology. But if it doesn't have a tactical, when I say tactical, touch, feel, smell element to that, in person, that presents some challenges to make it an enjoyable experience. And again, that's taken off Steven Milley's hat, but it's one of the things that I see when these facilities are developed. They're very much in tune with that.
Right. So also, I know Panasonic's also done things. I wanted to move over, besides the esports world and video gaming and sports. Do you guys do anything involving concerts and shows and things like that?
So, how do I say this? So I'll talk specifically about the esports market, but this is broader for everything. Is when we're in the esports market, there's so many different avenues that use our technology, but most of them are facility based, and it could be a multi-purpose facility like a Staples Arena that wasn't necessarily designed for esports. It could be a casino that has a game book. It could be a college facility. But yes, to your point, rental is a big part of it, because you'll have these massive tournaments, 30, 40,000 people that want to go and see this tournament, and the game or the tournament organizer is not going to necessarily buy the technology to broadcast it, either on Twitch or whatever it is. And so they go and they work with rental partners. And so the rental houses have to look at the technology, not just, hey, I'm doing a tour, I'm doing the Lady Gaga tour, but they also have to look at it as, my technology needs to be very specific to esports, which is much, much different, the needs there, than it is for a Lady Gaga tour, right? But yes, it's a big market for rental, and our tools are involved in that as well.
So I know last year there was an enormous Fortnite tournament at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, and that's where the guy won, was it $3 million, Vuga, the 16-year-old video gamer. I wanted to ask you if there was a way that a casino could do that type of thing, and me bringing in an actual publisher who wanted to work in tandem, you would, how quickly do you think it would take your guys? I know you're more in the rental side of it, but I mean, how long does it take to set up one of these sort of like experiences, arenas, esports experiences, and then to be able to break that down?
So if it's a tournament that is going to the facility on a temporary basis, that effectively is going to be rented. Many of these rental facilities have, for lack of a better term, fly packs or kind of cookie cutter systems that are very broad based, and that can be designed according to the producer's needs relatively quickly. It's like, here's the package that I have. What elements do you want to add or delete from that? And then I just make the changes there. The installation of that into the facility for a tournament is still very short. It's no different than a traditional concert tour. It could take a day, it could take a week, but not as long. When we talk about a complex, like say Fusion Arena, they're designing that for years, right? Well, I can't say years, but outside of the funding of it, once they get into the design phase, it could take a full year to design something like that, because there are so many nuances of how they're sending and routing the signal around, how they're going to be using the facility. It's not just this aesthetic, but it's also technology combined. So it all depends on what the facility is. If it's at a temporary basis, that can be done very quickly. But if it's a long-term installation, then I would recommend anybody who is take their time on it. They work with a design engineer that specializes in esports, like a Populous, for example, and start that process there.
You know, the last thing I wanted to ask you, and we're going to probably wrap it up after that, but last thing I want to ask you is, one of the things that fascinates me for the future are holograms. Holograms are basically, if you can explain that, those are basically also a projection from a projector. Does Panasonic do anything in that realm? And if they do, can we see that coming to the future as a product that could be placed into a casino for an immersive experience?
So we don't deliver anything currently like that. Now we have a facility in LA. It's called Panasonic Hollywood Lab. And effectively what Panasonic Hollywood Lab does is they're an R&D without the D, meaning they're a research facility that goes and talks with our customers. What do you need? What do you need us to see to develop? Here's where we're thinking the world is going to go. What do you think of this? And so they're engaged currently in those types of dialogues. They have prototypes of holograms and other things that they're talking with customers and saying, here's a prototype of what we're looking at, and trying to get feedback on whether we develop it or not. So to your point, Ari, I think that it is something that I think you're accurate. It could be coming along. Panasonic would be at the forefront of that. It's not that we deliver right now, but those are dialogues that the end engineers are having.
Well, what more can we look for toward the future in Panasonic? And where are you guys? What other places and will we see more Panasonic installations of cameras and projections and things like that in the near future?
So yeah, there are traditional markets that are always going to use our technology, whether it's sports, broadcast, education, worship. What we're always trying to identify are new and emerging markets. And so even though for a lot of people in the world, they think esports is a new and emerging market, as you and I know, this was developing years ago, right? Yeah. And so it just happens to be new for everybody right now. One of the things that we're seeing, and it was pre-COVID, but now ramped up due to COVID, is in-home and high-end production quality content delivery. And so whether that's news or whether that's iPhone, what's the network? Quibi? I may be mispronouncing it. And where is that content coming from, and how is it being developed? And that's a new and an emerging market. Right.
Well, I wanted to thank you, Steven Milley, for coming on and talking to us. I know we had some technical difficulties before, but we worked that all out, obviously. But it's been a real pleasure. I hope to see you at the Casino Esport Conference.
Absolutely.
You'll be there on the panel. Let me just let you plug yourself, plug Panasonic, and how anyone out there in the audience in the casino industry, the filming, the movie industry, amusement industry, how they can find you.
Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn, again, Steve Milley, but you can find anything on Panasonic relative to my group, Panasonic North America. You can research under broadcast or audiovisual technologies. Effectively, what our group does is, I'm going to oversimplify it, we make commercial grade and professional grade cameras, switching, display, and projection technology. So you wouldn't necessarily come to us if you're going to be doing a hobbyist video or a hobbyist still camera. That's not our group. But you would certainly come to us if you are making a movie or making a theater or doing a large house of worship facility. And you can certainly still look me up. It's Steven Milley on LinkedIn, but Panasonic North America, you can find us.
Steven Milley, it's been a pleasure. Stay safe, and let's all get together in the fall, hopefully.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me, Ari, and appreciate everything you guys are doing over there.
Oh, we're doing the best we can. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.